All right, ladies and gentlemen, you might be shopping for some last minute Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts, but Sportswire Radio, we've stopped all that here for the next hour or so because there is a lot to talk about here. In the world of Major League Baseball, and especially for our beloved New York Mets, is there was some signings here the past couple of days, and also some minor league news. And I couldn't think of a better person to recap all of it with us with one of our very dear friends. He is the best in the business. He's been retweeted by a who's who of people on Twitter. He is, of course, an accredited member of the media who covers the St. Lucie Mets, and he knows the New York Mets organization like the back of his hand. So, without wait for it, further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one global sports show, accredited member of the media for the St. Lucie Mets, and his name is the Honorable MC Ernest. My friend, long time no speak.
It's been a long time, man. I miss hearing all that great stuff, but I'm ready. Look, I got the 86 Mets cards plaque thing on the wall here. I got the 2018 St. Lucie Mets signatures like the fan that I am. I'm ready to talk Mets, be Mets, talk some baseball with you once again, man.
Well, 86 Mets would be great and all, but I'm curious, who have we interviewed is actually on that 2018 St. Lucie Mets wall there? Because that, I think I might be more interested in. There might be somebody we've spoken to, or at least a couple of players on there.
It seems like all the guys are getting traded at this point. I think maybe there's nobody left. My God, they're all taken from.
I was going to say, I mean, I was asking you before we're off the air. Trey Cobb, I see, is no longer in the organization. Connor O'Neill, unfortunately, is quote-unquote pretty much not in baseball at the moment. And Marcel Renneria, I asked about, and it's really a handful of people left. But I'll get to all of that here in a little while. But I wanted to ask you first, because obviously we're speaking about the New York Mets, and we do a lot of that on Sportswire Radio, but haven't got a chance really to cover some of the Met news the last couple of weeks because obviously our Friday shows have been dominated by our NFL picks for whatever reason. People seem to like those. I don't know why. But I will ask you, in most recent news today, that the Mets re-signed Adam Ottavino to a 2-year contract, and it seems like the Mets are on the warpath for more bullpen help, I hear. And give me your thoughts on this, and where do we go from here maybe in this Met bullpen?
Well, yeah, things obviously hitting the hot stove again. Everything seems to be about the Mets these days, unless maybe the Padres make another mega contract. But I know when it got into the arms and then the Liam Hendricks, everybody was into the White Sox right now. We're all ready to trade some of my beloved minor leaguers to get another top arm. And apparently, lo and behold, the Mets go ahead and sign back a guy anyway, and Adam Ottavino. And I guess one of the reporters was trying to be too fast, and he had it as a 1-year instead of a 2-year deal, and now it's a 2-year with an opt-out. The biggest thing for me, looking at the Ottavino deal, was that old AAV on it. The yearly salary for his kind of, veteran presence, I think, is a really solid deal. I know everyone at this point is probably going to laugh even mentioning money at all during the Cohen Mets era. But, I mean, even considering the Cohen luxury tax and all that, this seems like a really solid, legit pickup, even based on the yearly salary for a guy coming off an insane year. And I know Penn Arms, veteran Penn Arms, you never know what they're going to do year to year. But obviously, you can't even really consider it much of a gamble. I mean, he was pretty solid kind of anchoring the pen, even from the setup spot a lot of the time. And I think on the new Mets, he's not even really the setup man with Robertson and everybody else. So he's just going to be one of those rotating maybe 7th, 8th inning guys, which only adds to the depth. So you can't really compare to like the White Sox and wanting to trade for anybody else. But this was a really, really solid pickup for the Mets. Even though they're picking back up their guy, which seems to annoy certain Mets fans, like that's still a good thing when you're bringing back, quality talent.
Let me ask you this question, especially when it comes to the Met bullpen. I feel like it was kind of in a way. I mean, there were other things that were spoke about, obviously catcher, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But I really feel like the one thing this team had to really address, just so they could basically, I guess, not have to rely on Mr. Diaz in certain spots, especially toward late in the year and even in those postseason games, was to deepen this bullpen as much as possible. Because while it wasn't the worst bullpen, it was kind of a very hot and cold bullpen. I mean, give me your thoughts on if that was really, in a way, kind of one of the things here that Billy Epler and Steve Cohen, by extension, really had to address for this team in order for them really to get back into the postseason and go deep into the postseason in 2023.
Well, that's the thing. It's always about depth. You and I, over the last few years, too, we've talked about it seems like the Mets were getting better and better with the depth. And that's why it's been starting to show. You can't really show much better than 101 wins last year.
Sure.
Then you go back in, you go into the offseason, and again, depth, depth, depth. But what does that mean? You don't really want to dip into the indie ball era in the middle of the year to try to find guys. So what the Mets have been doing again this offseason, lo and behold, it seems like every other day they were signing a guy that Mets fans weren't super excited about, but they were adding a bunch of pretty much 40-man guys for the last few weeks or the last couple of months. So when you have a lot of these guys, even through the Rule 5 draft, you have Jeff Brigham, you have John Curtis, who was like basically signed while injured, but that was kind of a method to the madness. And now another year later, you want to think he's going to be available. They have Zach Green. They picked up the 2 arms from Miami. The bottom line was, again, we love our prospects. You and I can sit here all day, and we want certain AAA pitchers to get the call up. I still do.
I think one of them was Steven Nagosic, who I lost count. I was joking with you. And how many times was he called up this past year? I mean, he's to me the quintessential example of that, what you just said.
And it seems like maybe can't really comp the players, different arsenals, but it seems like the Mets already this offseason have basically stacked their 40-man with a bunch of extra Steven Nagosic type players and arms, as far as guys that they're going to kind of have in AAA majors. So that's one of those things. I mean, obviously for them and their dreams and what they're working so hard for, it's easy for us to say, man, I can't wait to see you on the taxi squad for when a guy gets injured. We'll be all great. But that's what the Mets have seemed to be doing, again, beyond the megastars, beyond the 2 40-year-old like billionaire pitchers they have atop the rotation. They've been stacking up the situation of the what if situation, or the quote unquote inevitable situation, over 162 games. So now if guys need to start getting called up, taxi squad, in 2023, the Mets are going to be calling up a bunch of guys with major league experience already, who are like, I don't know, under age 30, or some other guys they were inviting back to camp who are a little bit older, but they're going to be bringing in and having a bunch of experienced AAA to MLB and beyond level guys to call up again, which is something you're going to need one way or another. You might as well understand it, realize it, accept it.
Absolutely no question about it. And I also want to make sure everybody, if you're listening and watching this, please follow Ernest Dove on Twitter at Ernest Dove, Instagram at Ernest.DOEV. Also, make sure to follow him on YouTube as well. Also, have something really cool to plug here in the middle of the show that Ernest is a part of. And I'd like to support those who support us. So we'll definitely make sure to plug that as well. And we're talking Mets hot stove and more, plus some Mets minor league news, which I'm actually most excited about. And we'll get into that in a little while here. But I mean, how do you then feel about this Met offseason so far? Because I remember going on Sportswire a couple of weeks ago after the news with DeGrom hit, and I had guys like Rob Maraska and even Justin Gianelli, even the Brew Force Brad Weiss, who were dying-to-wool Mets fans, and it was like, well, what are we going to do? I don't want Verlander. It can't be only Verlander. Sky is falling. I thought we were going to spend, but yet here we are, and the Mets have pretty much, maybe with the exception, I guess, of the Padres, and some other teams have made some moves. Dansby Swanson with the Cubs, but I mean, Philly certainly have also given us a run for their money as well. But I mean, certainly the Mets have definitely put out the big arsenal here when it comes to resources. So, in your opinion, how do you think the Mets offseason has been so far, or almost what's left of it?
Well, yeah. Now you got to put away the fan hat for a second. I mean, you know, the Mets, obviously, for some weeks, everyone was going crazy. God forbid anybody signs anywhere, and everybody's sleeping. Owen's being cheap. And then, like a $500 million later, they have new arms and they have new everything, and they have Nimmo back. At the end of the day, if you want to think about it, what's today, the 20th of December? I think we're going to go into the rest of these holidays and into the new year. The Mets have pretty much filled every single version of a need that they can think of, other than maybe DH and an extra outfield bat. So this has got to be one of the most exciting off seasons you could ever see in your whole life so far.
And last season was a pretty good one on top of that. I remember last year speaking with you, and it was like people were fired up last year because, well, we got Scherzer and Marte, and we added a lot of guys last year.
And they did it again. We're going to go name for name, this for that. Oh, Verlander for DeGrom. Well, you know what? DeGrom pitched half a season. So what are we fighting over here? I would have loved to have seen him for the rest of his career in a Mets uniform. But the Mets just acquired and signed the reigning, Cy Young winner in the league. So, and you still have Max at the height of his career. He doesn't seem to want to let up. Then they signed Kodai Senga. Then they signed Quintana to be maybe another one of those, like.
I think the Quintana's a nice step move. That's a nice step move there.
It's a really good mid-rotation, like maybe kind of like another version of a Bassett replacement, to get a guy you want to be in there, a veteran to eat the innings, give you those quality starts, keep you in the games. For him and Senga to be the 3-4, however you want to do it. And Carrasco, as far as I know, checking Twitter, I believe is still on the Mets. Which I would prefer that it stays that way. I don't really understand why everyone wants to trade him because of that beautiful salary he has. But unless, for my beloved younger players, give Peterson and McGill a shot, or maybe Buto is going to be like starring out of nowhere and everyone's quietly thinking he'll be ready to go by like summer. But you got to love everything about the Mets off season. I mean, they're pretty much pushing all the right buttons, and they may be paying a lot for certain guys, but it's probably to get to who they want. And then they haven't really been making any trades of significance to this point, knock on wood, for my minor leaguers, because I think whether it's the rumor, hearsay, whether it's my heart, it kind of sounds like the Mets to this point are still kind of semi-hesitant about starting to funnel away some top 5, top 10 prospects to try to fill a gap when they can kind of technically simply just buy one, which is what they've been doing under this new window, waiting for that farm to build back up.
Well, I do have a question for you on Twitter, so let me get to that. And I apologize I didn't get to it about 2 minutes sooner, and that is from Ethan Briggs. And Ethan is on Twitter. You can follow Ethan on Twitter at EthanBriggs_88. And he wants to ask you, Ernest, which I know a lot of people want to know, is can we get some insight on the new player development hires? Eric Yagers, Jeff Albert, etc. So anything you'd like to share on that you might know?
Well, I mean, nothing specific on individual names. I just know that, again, since Cohen took over, and talking with somebody in the Mets organization a few hours ago who basically was like, this is the greatest owner I've ever had in my
It was funny. 4 years ago, I remember going on with you, and we were speaking about the other owners, and they were the worst owners. We went from worst to first in a short time there almost.
But I know there was concerns basically on the levels that I knew about, only because there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of guys were being let go day after day after day, cleaning out the minor leagues, maybe versions of holdovers and trying to help through the next newest season. And then Epler fully kind of being integrated in, started maybe putting in a lot more of his guys. So I know there was concerns overall about, oh no, what's going on? He's changing up everything. But the thing what's also going on is I keep hearing about this, not individual coaches and staff and scouting, but the amount of resources being pumped in by the Mets organization at this point. Even talking with a player earlier about some of the me and my pitching like gurus. It's not even about the pitching coaches at this point. It's about me and my like metrics, analytics, data pitching guy. The Mets have everything right now. So what they're doing in the organization, top to bottom, from the minor leagues on up, it's been incredible. And I know the guys at that level are really excited about it. But I'm telling you, the resources, the analytics, the money's funneling in. All the advanced technology they're using above and beyond now, which is kind of matching some of the other organizations. They're just bringing in the guys who are probably also along for that ride, that have that knowledge, and they're ready to run with all the resources.
Absolutely. Very, very exciting stuff there, to say the least. And also wanted to get through a couple of other comments that you had, and some general responses from different people here. And somebody had mentioned some prospects here a little while ago before we went on the air. And let's go right into that. I mean, any news you might want to share when it comes to some of our Met prospects, or those that are kind of tearing it up in the organization?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, there's no off season for the Mets, right? I guess, of sorts, and there's no off season for the Mets minor league prospect huggers and junkies. So, I wanted to kind of dive into certain things, and I got extremely lucky to communicate with a source in the Mets organization. I never want to name names.
I always tell people, just like I tell the wrestlers, there's certain wrestlers, they'll tell me, hey, you want to know what happens the next 6 months? I'm going to tell you my storylines. And I'm like, if you tell me that, that means I'm going to know, and then another wrestler's going to want to know, and then the promoter's going to want to know, and then I'm going to be in the middle of it, which I actually got into that, but I won't share that on the air. So I'm going to say, whatever you do, whatever the best you can do for yourself is, do not incriminate your source and plead the fifth when it comes to that. So don't, like I tell my wrestlers all the time, don't tell me what happens. Don't tell whatever you know. Let's keep it the same way for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask some general questions to, like, hey, please help me get hyped up about the my minor leaguers. Can you tell me some names here and there? And it was great having that back and forth banter. So I wanted to mention mostly a lot from last year's draft class, because the Mets had a really good draft class. We can start at the top. We already know about the Jet Williams. That's a guy, pure bat tool. They're super excited about him. That's not going to change. Me saying that, I'm not really groundbreaking anything. I wanted to get into some other guys, though. I wanted to ask about a few other players, even from the last year's draft. And one guy I wanted to talk about a little bit, I heard about, they consider him like a jack of all trades kind of player, and he also has above average plate discipline, is infielder Chase Estep, last year's 9th round pick. One of the newer guys. He's out of Kentucky. It sounds like they're really excited about, where things can go with him. And I was also talking about with the Mets, guy who really believes in the hit tool that's been really being amplified in the scouting, in the amateur scouting, into these draft picks. And that's why they are really excited about this other crop, including Chase Estep. And I guess one of the things to keep an eye out on is his power. You could say that about a lot of guys, but he's a guy who has been playing in the corner infield, maybe at the hot spot in pros so far. So if you want to look into how his power is going to develop, that could also possibly determine the future of Chase Estep. Another guy I wanted to mention, getting really young, when I asked, who is somebody that just comes to mind, and literally the first name to come to mind is 18-year-old infielder Jacob Reimer, who was a middle infielder at a high school last year. And then he got drafted by the Mets, and he was basically playing third base last year. They were really excited about him so far in his career. They love what's going on in the development. There's work to do. They love the development, changing from middle infield to third base. They love his plate discipline as well. That's something they think is going to translate all the way up the levels. So I think Jacob Reimer at 18 and even Chase Estep, we're talking about two recently drafted younger corner infielders who can have an impact. And one of the guys who's completely unknown to this point, he hasn't even pitched yet. But the one thing I know, I guess maybe rehashing the draft from the 7th round, 19-year-old Jonah Tong, they love his metrics and his athleticism. So that's what they're still trying to bank on. The Mets organization, like other organizations, they love to take it pretty slow with high school pitchers. So he got drafted and never saw him. So I like the idea of at least hearing some good things. So I love the idea of thinking, what can come or become of Jonah Tong in 2023. And that's another one of the arms that I was being told about.
Very, very exciting stuff here. Very, very exciting, and hopefully we see them progress. And as crazy as it sounds, we're not too far away from the start of the season. I had heard this on the radio this morning on MLB Network on Sirius. We're 100 days away, actually, till opening day, which means our minor leaguers aren't too far away. Also means that there's some winter ball still being played, and somebody's out there trying to stay up, whether it's in Australia or Venezuela or somewhere else. And I know that Ernest is one of those people that's doing that. And of course, Ernest does a great job. And Ernest, I wanted to ask you something because there's something out there. I know you've been working on it. It's a really cool thing. And I wanted to give you the floor and promote it. And it's something that I think a lot of people that are tuning in, whether they're on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, or anyone else that might be tuning somewhere out there on sportnarium.com/players, will our flagship here, Sportswire Radio, might want to know about. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about that, we'd all love to hear it.
That's right. Little quick commercial break. I just want to highlight and shout out before I talk more minor leaguers. I want to give a shout out to the guys, the creators, the makers of Baseball Heads. Baseball Heads is a new NFT project that was created to bring together baseball fans and autograph collectors in the NFT space by offering holders access to giveaways for autographed memorabilia, a fantasy league, IRL meetups, and more. You can start minting now at baseballheadnft.com. That's baseballheadnft.com. Their current giveaway is a Fernando Tatis Jr. Jersey. So if you want to go onto the website to purchase and mint your own Baseball Head NFT, you could also catch them on Twitter at BaseballHeadNFT. Simple enough, man. You know me. I'm now into the NFTs and I'm into the crypto, which apparently is dying on me, but I'm going to hold.
As somebody that has made money in the crypto world a little before you got in there, my advice to you is definitely hold. Crypto has made a little bit of a comeback, but unfortunately we're in kind of choppy times right now with the economy, and kind of crypto is tied to that. But I would say let your heart not be troubled. Crypto will definitely come back. But in the meantime, NFTs, I want to say why they're so cool is because even Topps has gotten into the NFT stuff. As somebody like myself that is actually a huge collector, I collect whether it's baseball, WWE, wrestling, you name it. I have a large collection of a lot of this stuff, and NFTs are kind of like the almost modern day version of all that. So if you can, really try to support this great cause. I know that Carlo Lorenzo Garcia is a part of it, and a lot of great stuff. There also, I think, an Alan Trammell photo, the former Tiger Hall of Famer, and Ricky Henderson stuff they're giving away. So a lot of cool stuff there. And like I said, if you're somebody like us who's probably in, let's say, between the ages of 30 and let's say like 45, where you grew up, you might have been collecting sporting cards, or maybe you did the magazine stuff. Well, now we've kind of gone into the NFT stuff. That's kind of the new thing. Topps has gotten into that as well. So definitely, please check this great stuff out here. Baseball Heads looks like a really, really cool thing. And I say this sincerely as somebody and myself that is a huge collector of different things and likes memorabilia. Definitely check these guys out. They do a great job, just like our friend Ernest does. Ernest Dove does a great job. And you can follow Ernest again on Twitter at Ernest Dove, Instagram, Ernest.dove. Also, make sure to follow him on YouTube. And if you like Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Over 500 followers already. So people are definitely continuing to support. We'll have coverage throughout the week on Sportswire Radio. Of course, the regular Sportswire Radio team will be back here at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll pick up a little bit where Ernest has left off. Well, probably not, because they're probably going to do all NFL mostly, because these shows on Fridays, you'd never be able to be a part of them because they go so long at this point, and it's like I just want to like, come on, let's go. And this one's got to talk, and that one's got to talk. But that's okay. We give everybody a chance. We're thankful that Sportswire has done as well as it is done. But, I mean, talk to me about some other minor leaguers, and not just Ronnie Mauricio and Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos, kind of the sexy prospects that everybody's kind of waiting on. You hear them, whether it's on the Fan or anywhere else. But talk to me about some other prospects or some other minor leaguers that you're following that I think people that are listening and watching you, whether it's on Twitter or elsewhere, want to hear about.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple of guys, even for some of my St. Lucie time a little bit last year. And one guy that came to mind to me that I wanted to ask about was DeAndre Smith. he seemed like a unique guy. He seemed like a power guy to me. So I was pretty excited about the power. I wanted to ask about him. And basically, the thing about DeAndre Smith is the Mets organization, they love his versatility. They feel that he's going to develop nicely defensively. St. Lucie had him, in the pros with St. Lucie more at second base. They like the way he's going to look defensively more because of basically the way they see him developing because of his athleticism. They think just that alone with technique and development is going to really kind of help him shine in his game. I think he'll make all the plays defensively because of it. And it kind of sounds like they're throwing down the gauntlet. They're like, you know what? I think DeAndre Smith is going to surprise some people in how they were projecting him offensively and what he's going to be doing. So I was excited to hear those kind of things because I want to root for guys like that. So it's like, hey, DeAndre Smith, he's kind of a guy who may kind of overstep some of the projections that other people were trying to have on him. He may go above and beyond it. So I'm going to be rooting for him to do that. Going in a different opposite direction of sorts, because everybody in the minor league world knows about him. But bottom line, the Mets obviously love pitcher Blade Tidwell, last year's second-round pick.
Oh,
He got a small cup of coffee last year coming out of college. They love his upper 90s fastball. They feel they were seeing flashes of a plus slider, and they really like his changeup. So with that 3 pitches in mind, I think the Mets organization are still extremely excited about Blade Tidwell. On a different spectrum, talking really tall is 6'10", Paul Gervais. Big arm.
Okay.
He's a big arm, big guy. They love him as well. They just think he's an interesting guy to keep an eye on. A lot of development to still work on. They want to see, and let's see what happens with his breaking ball as well, with the fastball. But Paul Gervais is a really huge guy, possibly now going into the high A's and upper levels. Let's see what kind of like reliever type arm they have here. Big arm. Let's see what the secondary pitch is going to look like. He could be pretty exciting guy to keep an eye on. And then also, completely way under the radar, 6th round pick from last year, Tyler Stewart, who also seems to be extremely tall himself. Just kind of a name that was given to me for Tyler Stewart. They basically was like, keep an eye on Tyler Stewart. I just find him extremely interesting. Kind of the words I was used, like interesting, fascinating. He seems like, to me, that means like it could be one of those wild card, like no one's looking at him. I just find him very interesting, and I want to see what happens in 2023 with Tyler Stewart. And those are guys that I love. We could also talk about friends of the show, which I'm very easily, happily do. One of them would be Mike Vassell, who's one of the higher ranked.
You've interviewed Mike Vassell. Yep.
The Mike Vassell fans, who even from draft day, they felt that he was one of the steals in the draft. You know what? So far, so good. He had a good showing in the Arizona Fall League. He made the Fall Star team. At this point, my understanding, he's going through some things. Again, pitching guru type guys. Now it's not even just about the coaching. It's just about my analytics guys and the guys staring at films and metrics and resources. They've been working with him on some adjustments that they feel will also work and better him overall. So they've seen the tape. They're going through the tape an insane amount of times. My source just also absolutely loves Mike Vassell, and they think that with some of these tweaks and mechanics and this and that, we could talk about these things all the time with pitchers, but he's really excited about Mike Vassell as well as how 2023 is going to go with some of these things he's going to be working on now, along with the stuff he was working on even from the Arizona Fall League. You got to have that pinpoint command, higher level hitters, higher level bats, higher level plate discipline. He's going to start adjusting to all these things, and he could be a really excited arm. The other player friend of the show that I was waiting I waited all the way until I think July to be hyped to talk about Tony DeBrill, and he finally made his debut.
We interviewed Tony DeBrill together. Yep.
Yeah, he finally was able to make his debut and played and pitched towards the end of last season, coming back from Tommy John. The coolest things about him is he's in Puerto Rican Winter League. He's been doing really well, pitching really well. Probably working on the command. You got to worry about the walks, this and that. The K rate is still up again for Tony DeBrill. He's been a high K rate guy his whole pro career, and the fastball has been going back up. When I saw him a couple years ago in A ball with St. Lucie, they were worried about the fastball. Fastball's been ticking back up from 92 to 94. So it's been going back up. He made his mechanical adjustments as well. I believe even for winter ball, fastball and curveball have been two of the kind of go-to combos that he's been working on in his development while pitching in real-time games. And I'm just excited about him eating about 30 innings at this point in winter ball because he missed all the innings. So I just think that Mike Vasil, Tony DeBrill, they're the kind of guys you're going to be hearing about more in the extra media and the beat writers when these guys are in AA, AAA, when they're like one step behind. So I'm excited to see them both, hopefully, knock on wood, in the AA, AAA level in 2023 and just kind of see how things pan out.
Tony DeBrill has been there, and Tony DeBrill, obviously, we got a chance to hear his story, and really, really good speaker. Obviously, I think he was one of the better speakers that we had on here, and he definitely opened up to us a lot when we had him on here on the Sports Report and Sportswire Radio. And that's the kind of guy, based on kind of his experience, the success. You think about it, when he's been healthy, he's been very successful. So if he's got a really big 23 ahead for him, he's going to probably work his way up, like you said, maybe even to a AAA. And that's the kind of guy that can give you some versatility there, and certainly an exciting story. And obviously good to hear that he's healthy and on the up and ups. And I had to ask you, I saw some disappointing news for us in the Mets organization that Trey Cobb is no longer with us. And Trey was a guy we've interviewed a couple different times. Yeah, but a guy I thought that was going to make it and get called up, and unfortunately didn't quite get that call up here for us with the Mets. But he's moved on here in the organization.
Yeah, I was all sad to hear about Trey Cobb, but I'm still excited. Keep living the dream. He's going to move the dream over to the new organization. I would like to expect and see him in the upper minors, see him at the AAA level. He's a guy that absolutely eats innings. Teammates, certain coaches, they see him as being extremely filthy. When he's on, they just love the way he's throwing. He's throwing that jump. He lowered the arm angle, the arm slot, and he was still touching back to like mid-90s with the fastball. So he's going to be a unique arm. So obviously I continue to wish him well. I know our friend of the show, Stephen Valines, is still kind of coming back on the mend from missing the end of last season with the Rangers organization. So hopefully he'll be back strong in the upper minors up to AAA in 2023 for the Rangers.
And that's a guy that's been knocking, and he's a guy that's knocked on the door of getting called up, whether he's with us or in the Rangers organization. I mean, that's another guy that has knocked on the door. We've had him on like 2 or 3 different times, whether you've interviewed him as a standalone or when we did a multiple segment with him. I mean, so that's another guy you want to root for him, because obviously was a decorated player in college, and obviously, of course, he's got that sidearm. And Trey Cobb's another guy. We got a chance to hear his story right in the throes of COVID, and his personal life, and whether it's his father, whether it's his kids, how they were born and such. And unfortunately, a guy that hasn't quite gotten there, and he's knocked on the door. He's been in AAA a couple different times, but you obviously want to root for these types of guys like a Trey Cobb and a Stephen Valines, because they were so gracious to us. Manny Rodriguez, another guy you want to root for that we've had on the show a couple different times. Obviously, he's kind of like the clubhouse DJ from what we know. And Steven Nagosic, who we mentioned as well, who again, like I said, he must have been called up like 60 different times last year. But I mean, I want to come back to this and spend a few more minutes on the minors, and then I'll ask you 1 or 2 questions on the Mets as they figure out what they're going to do between now and the start of spring training. But I did bring up Mark Vientos. I did bring up Ronnie Mauricio, and especially a Francisco Alvarez. And I think Alvarez is important to kind of note, because the Mets have made some news in the catcher front. They bring in a guy, Omar Narvaez, and they've got James McCann still. I mean, what does this mean then when you see an Omar Narvaez get a 1-year deal, option for a second? You still got McCann. What does this mean then for a Francisco Alvarez, who everybody and their mother was screaming to come and get called up? Even guys on Sportswire Radio, as I mentioned, like a Rob Maraska, Justin Gianelli, and everybody else were like, we got to get a bat. We got to get a bat. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on what does this mean with all these Mets signings, especially a catcher for, let's say, Francisco Alvarez?
Well, to me, honestly, even as the minor league guy, I think at the end of the day, what the Mets are proving is that we are going to be an absolute force, monster, mega team all in yearly. So, with that in mind, all of my favorite prospects, including literally Alvarez, who consensus majority, he's been labeled as the #1 overall prospect in Major League Baseball. You don't even have a chance to be on this team, perhaps, to start, at least break camp. To me, what this means is, unless the Mets are going to start trading multiple catchers here, I can't pick and choose who. I'd rather keep Nito because I'm a huge Nito fan. So
And you know what? He had a lot of moments last year. You finally, like everyone would say, Guillorme and Nito, you talked about them, I remember years ago, and everybody was like, huh? But they actually were really invaluable cogs to this team. They were really valuable pieces, and especially Guillorme, the time he missed, that was kind of the team's kind of where the offense and their lineup kind of sputtered a bit. So, I mean, you were finally, after all those years, proven right a bit with Guillorme and especially Nito.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of, what the plan and these things are going to resolve itself at some point in the coming weeks and before camp. To me, what this basically means is that even Mauricio, the MVP of Dominican Winter Ball, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, and Alvarez, I don't know if literally any of them are going to break camp on a team that's a title contending team every single year. To me, what this means is that we are going for it like we are every single year at this point, and you're going to have to basically DeGrom and McNeil your way or Conforto your way into the lineup as a rookie to even get here. Or be an Alonso, they put the faith in him, and the guy had a ridiculous rookie season. It looks like that's almost what you have to do right now going forward to break camp with the Mets. You better be Alonso, McNeil, DeGrom, like from the day you step onto the field.
That's tough, man. That's tough. That is tough.
That's the way I'm going to have to see it. Until proven otherwise, it looks like unless they have such an absolute monster camp to at least win a DH role, I don't know if I'm comfortable with it. I've seen some other fellow Twitter friends who have said, hey, there could be other organizations. I believe maybe the Blue Jays. There are teams that can try to figure out maybe having 3 catchers on the roster by having somebody DH a lot. If you wanted to go that route and you minus one of the catchers, we won't basically say who specifically, but if they do eventually, if they move one of the catchers and they have one of the other guys on the 26-man, if an Alvarez is at DH, do you want the 2 40-year-old megastar pitchers pitching to Alvarez, or do you want them pitching to Navarez and Nito? There's probably a difference of, what are we going to do here as an all-in team going for a title right now?
See, I kind of feel, I kind of feel like that Vientos is going to be very tough for him to get playing time now on this team. You bring up Alvarez, everybody wanted him to see it, and him get at bats, and then you have this kind of quandary. Well, what about the rotation? You hear things about Carrasco being moved, and then I have to ask you then, David Peterson, another guy that we spoke about years ago. Where does this kind of leave him? A guy obviously you covered. We spoke about him years ago before anybody saw him in the Mets rotation. He's had success at times, has also had some injuries, kind of maybe had some hard luck at times over these past 2 years or so. I mean, where does all these signings and all these moves kind of leave a David Peterson?
I mean, that's the thing now. We have to figure out in camp, what is the role of David Peterson and McGill if they're both 100% healthy? They're in camp. There they are, pitching strong, pitching their innings throughout spring. What do we do? I know there's guys, I believe both of them may have options. You know what? At the end of the day, just with Alvarez and Beatty and Vientos and Mauricio, all top 10 prospects, including the #1 prospect in baseball, including Peterson, who has pitched quality innings multiple times in a major league uniform.
He's had moments for this team. There was a period I would have said he was our most durable starter.
And I think McGill was like pitching opening day. So, you know what? Yeah. It's insane what's going to happen. Now, does that mean that, and again, with what does the latest Mets signing mean? Now they pick up Ottavino. Does that mean they're not going to be unloading a guy like a Carrasco to try to get a bullpen arm? What are they going to try to trade a Carrasco for? What, a DH for a fourth outfielder? We'd all want Epler fired by the next day all of a sudden out of nowhere. I just think that, to me, all of these signings are really leading to the competition now that Alvarez and Beatty, Vientos, Mauricio, Peterson, and McGill, even with the experience as major league pitchers, they're going to have to earn it. Easy for me to say. It's their dreams. I always feel awful doing that. Maybe it's not the same thing, but now you can start to compare Peterson and McGill with Lugo. So what's going to be the end result to make this team? Do they have to go to – and also, by the way, Seth Lugo, there was also Trevor Williams, who probably didn't want to be a reliever either. And he succeeded and thrived in the role with a good organization with the Mets. So now you have the two new versions of Trevor Williams and Seth Lugo in McGill and Peterson. How do they handle it? Do they handle it? Does anybody in the New York media try to stir up anything, trying to get quotes from them? It's going to be an interesting camp if everyone goes, if Carrasco makes it to camp, or who's going to start kind of trying to nudge the bear and try to see what happens with McGill and Peterson to start questioning, who's going to do what. Are you willing to be in AAA? Are you willing to be in the pen? Easy for me to say. I would absolutely love Peterson and McGill in the pen, but where's room? Maybe they'll find it. It's going to be a crazy spring camp, at least up until now, until more moves are made.
And I'll tell you what, Lugo was a guy who never really, I think, had a spot he was comfortable in. All these years he was a Met. I mean, he was pretty much in every different spot you could have been in the bullpen. And, originally he was supposed to be a starter, but we had him sort of as this short, long man. And it was him and Robert Gesselman that kind of carried us into the postseason, if you recall, when they got called up. And Lugo, again, just never really quite had the rhythm this past year, but at times he was like the only dependable arm we had in that bullpen. You forget about there was a time where I know Edwin Diaz was lights out, but there was a time that Seth Lugo was probably our best reliever as a Met, and obviously he goes to the San Diego Padres. Also, Taijuan Walker goes to the Phillies, so a lot of movings and dealings here this offseason. The Mets were definitely a part of it. Some other teams, the Phillies as well, played a huge part of it. Noah Syndergaard, our old friend, goes to the Dodgers. Justin Turner, another player that haunts us in Met lore, goes to the Red Sox. So the number of different moves here. Nimmo re-signs, which was obviously a very, very good thing, I think, for the Mets, somebody that we've covered here quite a bit. And is there anything else that you want to mention from a minor league standpoint before I get to closing thoughts? I know you're a busy man getting ready for NFTs and you're getting ready for crypto stuff and obviously Christmas. Your daughter's going to kick your butt one of these days. I see your daughter doing karate and everything else. I mean, so you almost got to be on your best behavior from that standpoint. But no, congratulations to all that she's doing. But anything else on a minor league standpoint that you think is important from the Mets that you should mention with us here?
Well, even out of almost sarcasm and fighting over past guys when they get traded, I know the one of the Twitter accounts for that Mets account, interesting name, you know what that means? It's his that Mets account. He had asked some questions about what do you think of the loss of Jake Mangum? Because I was always sad.
Yes,
I was
saw
on
that.
Twitter. I was all excited. I'm like, yay, Jake Mangum wasn't drafted or then was and then this and then moved. And he ends up on the Marlins at this point, which to me, Marlins on paper seems like the perfect fit for Mangum because of that ballpark they have down here.
Yep.
He's the kind of guy that, if you need to, then get him here, get him on the field to kind of roam center field and try to help out and get to everything. I think he's going to be a good bat-on-ball guy that can thrive in the outfield and make all the plays. The other Kalenic 2.0 from that Mets account to mention is Pete Crow Armstrong. So
yes, I know Pete Crow Armstrong. That's a name, definitely. High pick. And I remember doing a show with you when we first got him. That was about almost 3 years ago now.
Yeah, and obviously the reason why it's taken so long is because he was a high school pick and he had the shoulder issue before they even traded him. So great job by the Cubs to just take that lottery ticket, and now they're going to try to run with it. I don't know if he's going to be showing up like, gangbusters in 2023 and make an all-star team, but I think he's going to be a really good player. The one last question that that Mets account had was, what are your thoughts on Carson Seymour or Nick Zwack, the additional guys in one of the not greatest Mets trades in the recent couple of years, trading for Rupp? I of course believe in Carson Seymour. It helps a lot more that I talk to him, so there's my bias. I guess I'm in trouble. I just love Carson Seymour. He's a workhorse type of guy. So whether it's in the bullpen later on again anyway, or whether the Giants want to keep him in the rotation, I think Carson Seymour is going to be a guy that Mets Twitter is going to start referencing soon enough if he starts doing what he's capable of. I've heard a lot of good things about Nick Zwack. Not enough personally to project like major leagues and reliever or successful. I've heard some good things about him as well, but I guess I have to lean towards, are we really going to regret Carson Seymour being shipped off? Because I just think he's a really strong arm that he could just find his way into the majors, which is the point of all this. I just think he can kind of make it happen to the highest level. So I guess we'll start worrying another day about the Mangums, Pete Carl Armstrongs, and Carson Seymours of the world when we get to that day, I guess.
Well, Pete Carl Armstrong, we had spoke about when we first had acquired him in the draft, and we thought, okay, this is a guy. I remember you basically giving a description. You remember you messaging me saying, we got to talk about Pete Carl Armstrong. I'm like, yeah, I know, I got it. And that was a guy, unfortunately, different things that happened. And you speak about Ruff, you made me automatically think about Michael Givens. Between Ruff and Givens, Met fans will never let those moves down. But we'll see. Carson Seymour is a name I've definitely heard you speak about, and obviously we'll see what happens here the rest of this hot stove season here. And something tells me the Mets aren't done. There's still some moves out there. I know most of the big names are off the market, kind of surprisingly quick this year, but certainly the Mets have definitely made their moves. Basically, Verlander for DeGrom. You spoke about Verlander a little bit. Verlander and Scherzer tag team once again. We've seen this before with the Tigers for a few years, and they did have some success. Let's hope it's a little bit deeper for us this year than last year, and we'll see what else the Mets do, and also our minor leagues out there, and you're always a big part of it. So I want to give you the floor now. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to plug? I definitely can't thank you enough for all that you've done over the years. If you want to replug an NFT again that we had from our friends, feel free for that as well. Jim Unity, I see, is doing some stuff out there for the holidays, so I turn it over to you. You know the drill at this point, so anything you want to plug, and the floor is yours. Fire away.
Yeah, again, I want to give a shout out and thank you to the guys and the creators of Baseball Heads at baseballheadnft.com. Also follow them on Twitter at baseballheadnft. Also, shout out to Jim Unity Inc. With owner Mark Decker. Even as of today, there were social service providers making multiple trips. They had to go 2 different times to the gym. He kept getting in new donations. So there were basically some dozens of gift cards, some toys, basketballs, nail polish. We got lips. We got gloss. We got all kind of donations that were all given. They were all being picked up by social service providers and clinicians and caseworkers to now start doing some kind of, hopefully, some holiday drive-by shopping and kind of delivery. So super excited and thankful to the Gym Unity community and the owner, Mark Decker, for coming through like they do every single year. Otherwise, hey, I'm still here. I'm still around. I still love being a part of Sportswire Radio. I'm just excited for the rest of the winter to kind of get itself over with so we can get into the season. Be on the lookout for maybe some more interviews. Let me get some more things going and some more content so we can keep talking the best sports possible on the show and on the radio.
Absolutely. And of course, everybody can follow Ernest again one more time on Twitter at Ernest of, Instagram, Ernest.dove. Also, YouTube, you can see some of those videos during the season when he's down there in St. Lucie. Get some great footage there. I know Jose Buto videos we've seen out there. We've seen a whole number of different guys from the St. Lucie Mets over the years. So always enjoy what Ernest brings to the table. And Ernest has always been a huge part of things here at Sportswire. And certainly he has been one of the reasons why we have been successful. Again, over 500 followers on Facebook. And I really appreciate all of the support as well on Twitter. So Ernest, I hope that you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your wonderful family. I'm digging the long hair. I think you should keep growing the hair out. You definitely, you're catching up to me out there, so which is good. Yeah, keep it growing, man. You never know. Listen, I always tell people the running joke is if I cut my hair now at this point, I don't think I could grow it. So I think at this point, you might go into the same thing. But no, I was always blessed with good genes with that. But my friend, I can't thank you enough. I really enjoyed it. Let's do this sooner than from the last time we had you. Let's definitely make it as much as we can a regular thing here. And thank you for all that you do for us. Thank you to our friends again. Mark Decker over the years, always been a big supporter, and Brandon West of West Clothing, and also, of course, the baseball heads from the NFT giveaway they're doing. So let your crypto portfolio go up. Let your NFTs increase to the moon. And let's see some of our friends of the show continue to have success and more player interviews in 2023. So thank you as always, my friend. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Till next time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are here on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled program whenever I set the dial. And if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, I thank you for tuning in. I'll be back live Friday. I'll be back twice. Friday, I'll be back for our regular spot with our LWF coverage with Wildfire Nate Reese. He'll recap his match for us from the LWF Fightmare before Christmas, where he wrestled with the team of Crossfire against Shining Wizards. So we'll speak with Wildfire Nate Reese one more time. And we'll have the regular Sportswire radio team, including myself, Randy Dillon, Justin Gianelli, a guest spot from Rob Maraska, Chris Bizea, Billy McInerney, most likely, and the brute force Brad Weiss. Will do NFL picks, maybe get into a few minutes on baseball, what Ernest had to say, and some NHL, and maybe even a wrestling thought or two. And then we'll be back Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, we'll be back with pro wrestling and backyard legend C2K. So we'll have a lot to speak about with him. Courage to Kill, they call him. We'll find out why, and then we'll have more coverage next week. We'll have coverage with Joel Cobra of the Modern Day Mafia of CCW and GT Ministries, and also the Irish Wonder Chris Murphy from Nonstop Action Wrestling and more. So thank you. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you again, Ernest Dove. We'll be back here Friday. So we'll be back on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay well, and until then, we'll be back Friday. So thank you, everybody, and good night.